Hello and welcome to another Strictly Speaking. My name is Joshua Reaves. I am the University Theater Program Director. And tonight we've got a great guest with us, our performer, Mr. EDRED Utomi. Excuse me.
It's a tricky one.
Practice beforehand, but here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, EDRED Utomi joining us. EDRED is currently playing Alexander Hamilton on the national tour of Hamilton. So welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me. This is great.
Well, I'm so glad you're here. And, we've been doing this for about 6 weeks now, and I've seemed to get some of the kinks out of the program. But if we had a few bumps in the road, everyone, just remember we're just casual conversation, just strictly speaking, as it were. So, very first question. This is always the hardest.
All
so,
right.
Actor, what does that mean to you?
I know that's the hard one. For me, I thought a lot about this question. I would say that it's living the dream, right? Being a performer for me is the dream realized, and being a performer that is getting paid to do it, right? A lot of us performers and actors, we started doing it when no one would pay us, when no one appreciated our art. So to be able to do it on a large scale, whether or a small scale, and any scale really is the dream, and so yeah, and to be able to collaborate with people that I've looked up to for years, especially on Hamilton, different artists I've been able to work with throughout my time with it. That's really been the dream. That's really been a high honor, a high blessing. So, being a performer is all of that for me.
Well,
Yeah.
Edward, how did you get started in this? Like, when was your first chance to be on stage?
So I started freshman year of high school. I started as an easy A originally. I asked my brother, who was a senior at the time, what the easiest class I could take was, and he said theater. I was like, great. So I took it for 2 years, and we got a new teacher our junior year, Miss Carter, and she was that teacher in all the movies that, like the Freedom Riders teacher that like inspires great things from their students. And like, yeah, everyone in our class, we wanted to be performers full time. We wanted to be actors full time. And she really inspired all of us. So I moved, after I grew up in Las Vegas, so after high school, I went to University of San Diego for college, and I am the son of Nigerian immigrant parents, and so trying to convince them that I wanted to be an actor was a journey for a little bit, for a very little bit, and they got on board, and they came to see my shows, and they're like, oh, like you got it. But yeah, so I started high school. Then there was another defining moment after my freshman year. The touring company of In the Heights, the musical, which is also by Lin-Manuel Miranda, his first musical on Broadway. They came through San Diego, and I remember watching it in the audience, and it was like my big purchase after I had my first job in college, and like I brought my brother and sister, and we were like row G, and I'm sitting there the entire time, like wide-eyed, sparkling, and I remember very vividly at the end of the night, I was like, my face hurts so much. Like, why does my face hurt? And my brother was like, that's because you've been smiling for 2 hours nonstop. I was like, oh, yeah, cool, cool, cool. So it was like that I was like, not only do I want to be a performer, but I want to do like that. I want to, like, I was able to see people who look like me, see people who sounded like me, I didn't grow up with the musical theater, like the, oh, Oklahoma. So, like, I don't sound like that, I don't perform like that. But to watch people who were really doing what I connected with, it was the revolution for my own experience. So it was great. Yeah.
Well, talk to us about your first. What was your first role that you feel like, oh, I'm doing this. I'm making this work. What was that first like breakthrough role for you?
Um, Dang, that's a good question. I've had a couple. I feel like every role I've ever had, it came at a point in my life where I was like, I'm doing it, Yeah, it kept getting. There was the building blocks, they kept stacking. Sorry, there's something in my eye apparently. Yeah, they kept like stacking, So my first job out of college was, my first real musical. It was Midsummer Night's Dream, the musical, and it had all like Sam Cooke and Temptations, like it was a retelling. So I was like, yes, this is my first like foray into the musical world, So that was a huge one for me. then I booked Moonlight out here, which is a big outdoor like amphitheater, and I had like more lines, and I was in a lot more scenes, and like so everything was like it was step by step. I played Jim in Big River, that was a big one because that was like my first lead. And then I did Joseph the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. I've done it twice. Love that show. I know people have their feelings about it, but I love it. But I did it. Say what?
No, I did too. I played Pharaoh in high school, so
I also played Pharaoh.
hey, we're so
That's what I was about to say. So first time I did it, I played Judah, and I did the Calypso. Second time I played it, I played Pharaoh, and we like did a reimagining of it, and it was like a James Brown, Little Richard feel. And it was one of the first times I got to like really make a character my own, and not like just do what the Broadway cast did, essentially. So that role like really stands out to me as like one of those like I'm making it. Like not only am I able to like perform, because at that point I've been doing it for a couple years, but like I'm able to like make my stamp on a body of work, and to like kind of create this character from scratch. I had never seen anybody else do it that way. I'm sure if you go on YouTube, you could find somebody doing it that way, but I never had seen, like every Pharaoh I'd ever seen was like an Elvis type feel. So for them to be able to let me explore in that way really was a big moment for my creative artistry, and to be able to like really suss that out and be like, what works, what doesn't work. And they really gave me freedom. They're like, you can choreograph that moment, you can jump into the choreography with the with the ensemble whenever you want, but you can also freestyle, like do your thing. And I was like, great. And at that time I had never been given that, so it was like scary, but it was also like, this is a moment, like now I have to bring it, and now I have to really step up my artistry game. So it was a big moment for me, for sure.
great. And so tell us about, how did you get connected with Hamilton? Was it an open audition, or like, how did that happen?
So yeah, I did 5 years here in San Diego, and I was like, it's time. Let me, I got my equity card. Let me move to New York. And so my first year in New York, 2017, was like a back and forth year. Like I had moved there, but I had already booked a show in San Diego, so I came back to San Diego, and I went back for 3 weeks, and I came back to San Diego. And in that time, I was like in the process of firing my old agent, who was my old agent for a reason, and finding my new agent. And so 2018, top of 2018, I went into my new agent's office, my current agent, and I was like, hey, I'm here full time now, so let's send me out on things. And he hadn't signed me yet. He was like, all right, well, let's send you out on a trial run and see how you do, so what do you want me to send you out for? And I was like, Hamilton. That's why I moved here. That's my big one. So like, if there's a Hamilton call, send me out for that. He's like, all right, cool, cool, cool. So he called his secretary, and he's like, did I send some names to the, okay, cool. Yeah, add his name to the list. Sent me. So I went, and then he also sent me on a sister act audition at Westchester Broadway Theater. But so these were just trial runs. He had never seen me perform. I was a referral type thing, like an old friend of mine was like, hey, he was my old agent. He might be good for you. Had a couple meetings with him. We vibed, but he had never seen me perform. Didn't have a reel to send him. And so, yeah, he was like, let's see how it goes. So I went in, and that was it. It was an agent call. I went in, I sang. They had me originally sing for Hamilton, Burr, Washington. So like 3 songs of each of the characters. So I came in and I sang all those. And then they called me back, and 4 callbacks, 5 callbacks later, and a movement call. I got the call that I'd be starting rehearsal in 3 days, and I'd be leaving in 3 weeks, and that I would be debuting in a month and a half. So yeah, it was very quick.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody, don't forget the Q&A is open, so feel free to throw a couple of questions towards Edred and I, and we can towards me, and we can get those things answered. So, and just FYI, I'm going to be looking all around because I'm looking up at this Q&A. So,
Sure.
attention to y'all. So, let's see here. Let's start with a few questions. Let's see. So I'll just show a quick clip. Okay.
Okay.
This to me made me fall in love with you when I first.
Oh. Okay, let's see it.
This is what it means to make it. This is what it feels like. So here we are.
Oh. It's the stage. This is
stage. This is the room where it happens. Okay, I have to get to rehearsal. Bye.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that. So like you know, at this point you're like, wow, I think a minute. So tell us what went through your mind when you first joined what is currently the top musical in the world?
Yeah, that was my first day of rehearsal, and it's funny. I originally only recorded that to send to my family because I wasn't even sure at the time, like, if we were allowed to take videos on stage. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're new to this like massive thing that I was like, I don't want to break any rules. I don't want to give them a reason to fire me. Like, I don't, so like I'm taking this video. Like, I was like, I'm just sending it to my family. They're like, okay, like you're fine, like whatever. Like, obviously it was fine, but yeah, I was overwhelmed. It was the blessing of a lifetime. It was the thing that I had prayed for years. It was the thing that everybody knew that I was moving to New York to book or to try to book. To the point where when I booked it, people were like, "Oh wow, you've been talking about that for years. Like you really manifested that for yourself." And I was like, "I did. Like it was the only thing I talked about. I was a Hamill fan before I was in Hamilton. So yeah, it was very much that moment. Like I was on stage and I'm like tearing up in that video, and I'm just like, I did it. Like it's rare, that you get to achieve your dream in a lifetime. And like for me, that like I always dreamed big, and so for me out of college, I was like, I'm gonna be in Broadway. I'm gonna be on Broadway in 5 years. I've never done musical theater before, but 5 years, that'll be enough. And like for me, it's like you shoot for the moon. If you miss, you hit the stars type thing. So I was like, I know it's a lofty goal, but like if not Broadway, I'll be okay. Technically, I haven't been on Broadway, but Hamilton is a star, so like we'll take it. But yeah, so it was that moment that I was like, wow, this is the stage, this is where it's at. But then quickly followed up like, I need to get a rehearsal. Let me learn these let me learn these words. But yeah, it was good.
So you had what? You said 3 days rehearsal, 3 weeks you're on the road. Um,
So I booked it on a Thursday and I started rehearsal 3 days after on that Monday. Over the course of 3 weeks, I had rehearsals in New York, on and off. It wasn't as intensive as one might think. It was more like Monday, you come in for 2 hours of music. Thursday, you come in for 1 hour of costume. Friday, you come, so it was very kind of spaced out for those 3 weeks. The final week in New York was more of like, they brought in some other people who were joining. So I had 4 other people who I was like kind of doing the show with. We ran the show, it was a little more intense. Then we joined them after those 3 weeks. We joined them on tour in Denver. I had 2 weeks rehearsal in Denver. They were more intensive, and we're actually on the stage because the first 2 weeks weren't. Or the first 3 weeks in New York weren't. They were in like this other room that they've created for teaching. So yeah, we rehearsed for those 2 weeks on stage, and then I debuted March 13th, 2018. And then I was at the time the alternate, so I would go on for Hamilton every Tuesday. And I only learned Hamilton, and then I learned Washington, then I learned Burr, and then like farther into my contract, I learned Lafayette Jefferson. But yeah,
and
good
so
times.
you are on one of 3 tours that are out there.
Yeah.
Angelica, which you're on. There's Philip, and then there's Ann Peggy.
And Peggy, yes.
Brianna asked, do you get to interact with the other actors who have played and are playing Hamilton in the other tours?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I'm pretty good friends with the Hamilton I took over for, Austin Scott. I was his standby for a while, so me and him are homies. Julius Thomas Jr., who was on the Ann Peggy or is on the Ann Peggy, he was also a standby for the Philip tour before he got bumped to full-time Hamilton. So we're like standby brothers, like we understand the struggle of knowing a lot of, yeah, we both got kind of bumped together. So, I reach out to him a lot, and we're back and forth on Instagram. Same thing with Joseph Morales. He was a standby in Chicago before he got bumped full-time. So, it's that mutual feeling of like the mutual respect. I don't think I've ever met these people face to face, but it's like Instagram, it's like we support each other. It's very supportive, Once you're in the Ham fam, you're in the Ham fam collectively, not just your company, Yeah, and Michael Luoye, same thing, I met him. He was on our tour to start, went to Broadway. He's also, the son of Nigerians, so we have that connection. So I met him in New York and we talked. Lynn obviously is around. We all talk to Lynn at some point in the journey of Hamilton. We all discuss with Lynn. Yeah, so I feel like I've at least at some point spoken with, all the Hamiltons. We don't have like a an annual like golf trip or anything like that. Working on it. No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
But but yeah, we're in contact with each other for sure.
Well, we have an anonymous question here. Well,
Okay.
taking over the Hamilton role, you also played several roles on tour. What are the differences in actor prep as a stand-in versus having one role?
Good question. As a stand-in, for me, oh, look at that picture. As a stand-in, I feel like every character needed a different type of warm-up. Hamilton does a lot more rapping than everybody else, so for me, the diction warm-ups are important. Burr and Washington both sing much higher than Hamilton does in the show. So it's like we need to warm up the chords and make sure make sure they can hit these high notes. But also it's just a vibe. It's a feel. I get warmed up a lot by the music I listen to before a show, and I listen to way more rap heavy stuff before I go do Hamilton, so that I can spit bars than if I was going to listen to John Legend or something before I go sing some Washington stuff, or listen to, whoever for Burr that's going to open up the vocals or even get me in the mindset of a Burr more so than a Ham or a General. So yeah, there's that. There's also the physical warm up. I interpreted their three different characters as very different physically. And so even the way I stretch, the way I move leading up to it, it all tries to impact the character. I slowly, from half hour to the top of curtain, I slowly try to transform into whoever the character is for me, whether it be the more stoic. I attribute it to like signs, like Avatar Last Airbender type stuff. So like for me, Washington is very earthed. He's very unmovable. He's a tree trunk. He's the old standard. He's the one. He's the unmovable object. Burr is the cool water off the duck's back. I'm saying? He's chilling. He doesn't let anything faze him. He smiles through everything. And Hamilton is a bull in a china shop. He's fire. He's relentless. And so it's that type of thing where it's all the stuff that I learned, in college, that I was like, act like a leopard, act like fire, like that stuff that like, if you come into my dressing room, you might see me doing some weird stuff, who knows? But yeah, good times.
Played so many roles. Annie asks, which role is your favorite to play in Hamilton?
Good question. I think Hamilton is my favorite, which is good because I play him full time. But yeah, I think even before I took over full time, I think somebody asked me like, what's your favorite? I think Burr is my favorite in theory. Like, I think Burr's my favorite character, but my favorite one to play was Hamilton, if that makes sense. Because I really, really like My Shot, and I really, really like Yorktown. Yeah, those are kind of my favorite songs to perform, because I see that's an anonymous question. Yeah, I think I'd say it differs per character, though, because, like, Burr's not in Yorktown, like, at all, pretty much. He comes and, like, shakes Hamilton's hand, and that's about it. But, like, as Hamilton, My Shot, Yorktown, both cabinet battles, love it. All the rap heavy stuff, love it. As Burr, there's nothing quite like performing Room Where It Happens. Like, it's everything that you see Leslie do on the Disney Plus. It's like, as amazing as that feels to watch it, it's like just as amazing to perform it. And same thing for Washington. Like, One Last Time is that like number, like when you let it all out, there's chills, and then people actually clap. You're like, wow, that was cool, I guess. So it's a lot of fun.
All right, so another anonymous question. What was the most challenging part of learning the role of Hamilton?
Honestly, the words. There's so many words. And so the words is a big part of it. And also, Helpless Satisfied is usually the hardest part for people to learn. When we were learning it as a group, every time the director like, all right, anything you guys want to run, we'd like Helpless Satisfied, because it is, as we know, Satisfied is reversed of Helpless, but there's small differences that like are trippy. So like Hamilton, for one, after the like hey, like he exits in wing 2, stage left in Helpless, and Satisfied he exits in wing 3. So it's like tiny stuff like that when you're running it for the first time that you're like, wait, is it 3 for helpless and 2 for satisfied, or is it 2 for like stuff like that? Stuff like that that is a trip. So that's usually the hardest section of the show to learn, and then they put you on a turntable, and it's like, oh my gosh, here we go. So yeah, that's always a trip. But yeah, for the hardest, and then after that, after you learn all three, it's really just keeping them like in check, So like when you're at the theater thinking you're not going to go on stage, and then 5 minutes of places they're like, hey, you're on for Hamilton today, after you were just in rehearsal for Burr all day, you're like, okay, hold on. Let me reconfigure my brain. Hold on, wait 1 sec. Okay. And so then you get on stage and you actively have to like zoom mute button for every time Burr is talking, so you don't say his lines type thing, but you have to like say the whole show in your head. So that was kind of the hard part as a standby. It's just like making sure you didn't say other people's lines. It happened a couple times. It happens with the like, well, if it isn't Aaron Burr, and I'm like, who's supposed to say sir in this scene? Is it me as Hamilton, or me as Burr, or is it? And so like one time we were just like, I think I was Hamilton, but it was the Story of Tonight reprise where I don't say sir, he says sir, and then I said sir and he said sir, and then we kind of just stared at each other for a second in silence, and then like a line or two passed, and then we picked it up. But it was that type of thing.
Performance?
Huh?
Was this in performance?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, nothing ever bad happens in rehearsal. That's always fine. It's always in front of a live paying audience. But yeah, it was just like a little glitch, and like we stared at each other. Like, okay, and then we moved on. So it was good. But yeah, fun times.
Brianna asks also, had you had rap experience before you started on Hamilton?
I had not had like professional rap experience. I'm not like a professional rapper like W. Diggs is or anything. I listened to a lot of hip hop and rap growing up. And so that's usually what I would say was my experience. When people ask, I don't think there's a lot of Broadway shows that you would like unless you were doing In the Heights for just years previously. I doubt you had like professional rap experience in the musical theater world, because there's not a lot of shows there's like Shapoopy, but there's not like shows that, right? But there's not shows that, would give you that type of experience. So I didn't really have that much professional experience, but I grew up listening to Eminem. I grew up listening to, random battle raps and battle feuds between Fat Joe and 50 Cent and Jadakiss and Cannabis. And I listened to battle rapper, stuff like that I think just helped me develop in the role, and I still do. I still listen to, battle raps in my free time and freestyle rappers and things like that, just to keep it like fresh, and I try those raps. I'm still trying to learn the Busta Rhymes fast raps, that that are fire. So yeah.
Well, we've got a handful of questions in here. I think a lot of them will be answered with this next question from me.
Yeah.
Just through a typical day for you, from the time you take your bow in one city and the time the curtain opens in the next city. What is that?
Nice. Okay, yeah. So depends on the city, and it depends on normally we'll have a 2-show day, and we'll close at like 11 o'clock at night, which then it depends on a couple of factors, that the travel day, right? So if we're flying, there's a certain there's like, I need to actually go home and make sure my luggage is under 50 pounds because I'm a procrastinator, so I'm waiting till the night before. If we're busing, it's like, I'm going to throw everything in my luggage, throw everything in a bag and call it a day. We'll throw it on the bus, we'll be fine, because there's no weight limit, But yeah, it's normally, we get to a new city on Monday. We travel all day on Monday, whether it be flying or busing. Get to the new city Monday. For a while, we had a like tradition where every time we get into a city, me and my group of, a couple of us, we go find local barbecue. So we're trying to find barbecue all across the country and try to figure out what's the best. I still think San Diego's the best, but if you have a place in North Carolina, let me know. If you have a place,
come on down.
We'll go out and check it out. But yeah, so we'd find a barbecue place. Then we kind of just get a lay of the town. Maybe swing by the area of the theater Monday. And then just kind of chill, rest, because travel days are pretty taxing. Even if you're not performing, it's still like either sleeping uncomfortably on a bus for 8 hours, 6 hours, whatever, or flights are never comfortable, for me at least. I don't like flying that much. So, being cramped in a seat, trying to sleep for a 3-4 hour flight. So yeah, we just kind of chilled that Monday. And then Tuesday, explore the city a little bit, get brunch, get food, see what, if you're going to be there for a while. Normally we're in a city for like 3 weeks. So it's like if we're going to be there for 3 weeks or if we're going to be there for longer, try to, I don't know, figure out a gym membership type situation, get a run in. They normally have some sort of deal if we're staying there for a long time, so it's like, all right, go to the place they told us to go to, drop your name. It's a YMCA, go play some basketball, shoot some hoops, get a little sweat in, go home, take a nap, wake up, eat, and then we go to sound check in the new city. So sound check is normally like 2.5 hours before curtain call, or before curtain, or before like half hour. So we go, we have our list of songs that we always know that we go through. King sings his portion of his song, I sing a portion of Hurricane, then we do this, then we do that, then we do Wait For It, then we do this, So we do all the songs, then we do all the lighting adjustments that we need to do for like Yorktown specials and the spotlights. Dancers do a lot of lifts and stuff. That's normally when I peace out. Yeah, they do all their lifts and practice that. Do all the choreo, set a lot of dance, because every theater is different, so there's the readjustment of like, oh, our focal point used to be this for this moment, but since we don't have that exit sign in the mezzanine like we used to, now we're going to use this or whatever, set things like that. Then we have a little break, then we have half hour, then shows up, and then it's back to work, and we do it for 3 weeks, and we just repeat that, rinse and repeat for however long your contract is. I've been on for 2 years, since 2018. We've hit a considerable amount of cities. So, at first it was like every 3 weeks, and then normally what will happen is that for half the year you'll do like 3-week sits, 4-week sits, and then you'll have a large sit down for like 13 or 14 weeks. So my first year was DC. We were there for 12, 13, 14 weeks, I think. And then last year it was Philly, and we were there for 12 weeks, So it's that type of thing where it's like, just when you're tired of like hitting 3 weeks, like, oh my gosh, I'm so exhausted by, constantly moving. It's like, great, you have a large sit down. And then after that, you're like, I really want to get back on the road, so then we set to it again. Oh, you're muted.
See?
There you go.
In the road. So yeah, I mean, and that seems to be, that's certainly my understanding is a plus for Hamilton.
Yeah.
Weeks is a long sit down for most tours.
Yes, it is. I was on a non-union tour of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Good times. Glad you don't have any pictures of that. No, I'm kidding. It was great. But yeah, we did the one day in New City every single day, So it was the wake up at 6 a.m., get on a bus for 8 hours, go to a city, don't go to the hotel, go straight to the theater, do the show, or do sound check, stretch, do the show, go home, sleep for however many hours you could, wake up the next morning at 6 a.m. We would do that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Then we'd have like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday sit, type thing. So I've had both ends of the spectrum, and I definitely preferred this one.
Well, so you've gone through a typical day. An anonymous attendee asked, how has COVID impacted your role and those who work in the theater as a whole?
I mean, it's put everything on hold. It's put everything on hold, unfortunately. And so we're kind of all just waiting to go back. And it's really, we're trying to figure out, I think the community, as a whole is trying to figure out inventive ways to do it, but it's hard to do live theater virtually, That's my squad! Oh, man. Sorry, I'm going to do a side tangent. So these was what I was saying earlier, is that the people I rehearsed with, right before we all debuted pretty much on the same day. It was the girl in the middle, Issa, who is a TV star now. Issa, she was our Peggy Mariah. I was a standby. The guy next to me, Ferguson, he was the understudy. He played Man 5, who's James Reynolds, but he also covered Hamilton, Burr, King, and then later Lawrence too. Robbie, who's on Issa's right, yeah. He's our Man 3, our Charles Lee, and then next to him is Dre, who's our Mulligan Madison. And we all came up together. We all learned it around the same time, and pretty much all debuted at the same time. So yeah, that's the squad. That warms my heart. What a great picture. I love them. But yeah, and then that's the squad too. Oh man. So yeah, those are some of our swings. I think they're all swings. Yeah, all of those are swings. The guy all the way on the left, Yes, he is our dance captain, Des, and then they're all swings who have been in the show at some point. But yeah, that's me as Burr. And where were we? We were in Buffalo, I think. We were in Buffalo, New York. Yeah, that was me in one of my Burr performances. But what was the question before? I'm so sorry.
And I brought this up because it was part of what's the rest of the community, the rest of the theater world doing now. We're on hold.
That's right. Yeah, I think a lot of people are, trying to figure out virtually, how to still be artistic. I have a lot of friends. A lot of these people, even in this picture or in the last picture, they're either writing music and putting that out or doing virtual dance classes, things like that. Things to keep the art warm, so it doesn't go completely cold before we go back. But yeah, it's definitely impacted it. And really made us figure out how to be creative. That was Issa's her last sound check. And she fake proposed to me. It was really funny. We posted that on Instagram and some random account was like, we'll sponsor your wedding. And I was like, it's not a real wedding. We're just kidding.
Actors.
We're actors. Yeah, we're actors. But yeah, so it's definitely impacted it, but we're troopers. We're going to get through it, and we're very much, all of us, we're still on our group chat. We're all very much looking forward to that first performance back. We know it's going to be a mess because it's going to be a while since we have done it, but the audience, we can't wait to hear it. We can't wait to hear the love and feel the love, and we're also probably most likely all going to be crying, which is going to be, its own thing. But yeah,
Well, you kind of
let
went,
it out.
you do on a typical day with, sound check, a little stretching, things like that. But Linda asks, how do you prepare each day for your performance? It could take so long to be ready to be on stage and then to come down afterward.
Yeah, it's the after that is a lot for me. I don't sleep. My sleep pattern's all messed up. Even here back at home, it's like my parents are like, why are you up till 3 a.m. every morning? I'm like, because tours, that's what it is. Like I'm used to it now. But yeah, it's for me. I take it very seriously. The fact that people, pay a lot of money to see our show, and have, a lot. I will get a lot at the stage door. It's like, this is my Christmas present. This is my birthday present from 2 years ago. It's not even like a month ago. It's like I've been waiting for this. So I take that very seriously as a performer. It's like I need to be able to do my best show, and do the best show I possibly can. There's no marking. There's no reserving some and try to pace through the week. It's like I will give everything I can, every performance, because that's what is deserved, not only of the role, but, of the audience. And so for me, my days are very chill. I usually, save my energy. I stay indoors and I play video games. I'll get some food. I'll kind of chill. I always take a nap, even if I'll probably still work out. I'll go run a couple miles just to warm everything up. But for the most part, it's very chill. I don't want to be in a situation where I spend all day, in a city. I'm like, I'm going to explore and I'm going to go on hikes. I'm going to do this. And then by the end of the night, I'm like, oh man, I'm so tired. Like they didn't come to see a tired Hamilton performance. They came to see the firecracker that he is, so yeah, I play it pretty chill. Every now and then I'm a lover of escape rooms. And so I will do an escape room pretty much in every city, and get a couple of people who also like it. And so that would be like my outdoor thing that I do. But I'm normally not using too much energy or doing anything high stress, or even like not even energy, anything like emotionally draining. Like I'll try my hardest not to get into an argument with people until my day off. If I'm like I have a conversation I need to talk to you about, so let's wait till Monday, please, because you can't be in a weird headspace going into it. But yeah, then when you get to the theater, I kind of have the same routine. I listen to music. I have theme days. Saturday morning, I listen to cartoons. Sunday morning, I listen to gospel. Friday, I listen to Normally Chance the Rapper, So I have these kind of routines that I do to get me into the mindset of the character, get me into a good headspace so I can play. And then after, it's the come down, it's the shower, it's the listening to peaceful music. If we have a car in the city and I'm driving home, I'm listening to, like the Nora Joneses, the Sarah Bareilles, very, no more turn up music, no more, I don't need to get hype, I'm like recentering myself. And then I go home and I'll like watch some Netflix, and nothing like Ozark or anything high stress or anything I need to focus. I'll put on some episodes of The Office. I'll put on some, Schitt's Creek or whatever, And I was just kind of like relax and chill, normally until 1 or 2 or 3 a.m. And then I'm like, all right, I'm
Bedtime.
tired. Bedtime. So that's normally normal day.
Oh, yeah. So thank you for that question. And we have another question from an anonymous attendee. So how did you rehearse the choreography with the moving stage? And just real quick, remind us about how that stage works.
Yeah, okay. So if you see the picture, right, my right foot is on like a crack, right? And that crack is the inner turntable, and then I'm kind of standing on the outer turntable, which is what we call the donut. So those two turntables can move both ways. So one can move left while the other one turns right, or clockwise, counterclockwise, or they can both move clockwise, or they can both move counterclockwise. Yeah, but it's so the way we rehearse is that they have a space in New York where they have essentially just tape on the floor, in the like in place of where the turntable would be. They have just taping, and then they just tell us when to move. They're like, and it's all very precise. That's the thing about this show, is that it's like when they tell you that the turntable moves on this word, for sure, because our tech people are, second to none, like, for sure that the turntable will move on that word. There's no like, well, it might move in this phrase. No, it will move on that word. So you better prepare yourself and lower your center of gravity, or you're you're gonna go flying type thing. So they would tell us, and like we'd be rapping and going through, and move, and then we'd have to start moving, and then essentially what they would do is say, you're gonna end up here. Right now, obviously, we don't have this turntable, so towards the end of this, just run to get to that place, but that's where you're going to end up. And every single time, when you start doing it with the turntable, you end up exactly where they told you were going to end up. And you don't have to walk, you just stand and it'll take you there. Or sometimes they say, now you just walk normally, and you might have to get into the position for that last moment, like history is happening in Manhattan, and we just, for that last, that's normal. That's like the big number, right? That's like the big turntable number, that and Satisfied. But yeah, that's how we rehearse. And then also when we got to tour, when we first got on tour, we had like an hour at the top of a rehearsal where all of us newbies, they were just like, we're gonna put the turntable on, have fun. And so we were able to like walk backwards on it, dance on it, get on and off of it, see how it felt to be on it when it started, see how it felt to get on it when it's already moving, whether quickly or slowly, because it changes speeds. Some songs, it's like, it's easy to get on, even if it's moving. Some songs, what is it? Non-Stop It. I remember I was Burr one time and I tried to get on. Oh, this is cool. I haven't seen this.
Yeah, this is from Eric. Eric was on your.
Nice.
So he, let's see if we can find. You see, this is the turntable here.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then you got.
Yeah, so the outer part is that's the donut, right? And so like, and the thing is, they'll have markings all over it, So it's like, you'll know exactly where to put your chair, you'll know exactly where to put this, you know exactly where to put whatever. Yeah, and it can move clockwise or counterclockwise, and it can move at different speeds. And so I remember one time, Burr has a moment where he has to get onto the turntable when it's already moving at nonstop. Hamilton luckily doesn't have a lot of those moments. Hamilton, since he's the lead, quote unquote, he can just stand in the middle and everything moves around him, which is great for me. But there was one moment I was trying to get on this turntable and I was like, oh, my feet are planted, and they were not planted. And I was like, oh, no. I didn't fall, but I was like, oh. And then I had to like keep singing, like, why do you assume your spiders in the room? I'm like sitting here like gripping the chair for dear life. But yeah, it's a fun one though. But they definitely give us time to practice on it so we don't fall on our face. It's harder for the girls. I don't know how they do it in those skirts. It's crazy.
So let's see here. So you started singing for us right here, and I'm not going to ask you to do this, but I'll ask Isabella's question first. Do you have a different acting voice for each character you play? Also, can you please freestyle for us?
I'm absolutely not going to freestyle for you because I'm not a freestyle rapper. We're getting there. That's my quarantine project. But yeah, I didn't have a different, I think I did actually have a slightly different acting voice for my characters, just because I felt like they lived in different places. The young, scrappy, and hungry Hamilton for me didn't sound like the old battle hardened veteran of Washington, you know. So I think I tried to lower my voice a bit when I played Washington. Obviously not that low, but you know, like even the rap flow of it, the rap style of you know, the can I be real a second for just a millisecond? Let down my guard and tell the people how I feel a second. Like that felt different than like I'm past patiently waiting, I'm passionately smashing every expectation, every action's an act of creation. You know, like one's a little bit more like metered in a sense, you know, like can I be real a second for just a millisecond, you know, more militaristic, you know, and then one's just like I'm off the top of the brain and I don't even know what I'm gonna say next, but we out here spitting, you know, like that's. So it felt different for me. So I did have different actor voices. Yeah, good question.
Cool. Well, we have another great question from another famous attendee. You mentioned the love you get from an audience. Can you talk a little more about what a live audience does to you in performance? Like, do you have an example of a time or a way an audience response has affected you as a performer?
Yes, yes. I think that, you know, they always say that the audience is the like final element of it. You can tech and have rehearsals and do all that, but the audience is really the like the final thing, right? And that being said, and a good audience can make a show exponentially better. Not to say that the performers aren't trying, but I know that if I'm tired or even if I'm at my like 100%, if I walk out and I'm like Alexander Hamilton and the audience goes wild, I'm like, let's get it. You know, like, let's go. We plan to put on a show for these people. Whereas if I walk out and it's like Alexander Hamilton, crickets, part of me is like, all right, just you wait. You're gonna get a good show. We're gonna win you over. You know, it's a different energy. I'm still out there gonna do my best. I'm not gonna be like, all right, well, since they didn't clap for me, I'm out. You know, like it's not like that. But it's the type of thing where it's like when we're getting into Yorktown and we do the dance special and it freezes and everybody loses it. There's a certain energy, especially backstage, that like the second we walk off stage, we'll comment on it. You know, we were in Richmond, Virginia, and they were loving the show because a lot of the show takes place in Virginia, right? But like they were loving it, and it was the loudest. And you can ask anybody on tour; it was the loudest they had been for a while, and it was also like the loudest possibly ever on tour. For moments like Yorktown, where it's like a minute later they're still clapping, and there's those type of things that it's like we now definitely want to do our best, you know, like even when we're at our most tired, that's when it's like that's fine. I could be exhausted, but like we got to give this audience here the best because we don't ever get audiences like this, you know. Not to say we don't get good audiences. We get a lot of great audiences. Obviously, it's, you know, it's Hamilton. But some audiences are a little more respectful, a little more quieter. They're more like, oh, that was lovely. And it's like, no, like we want people to get hype. I remember when I first started tours, our second city was Atlanta, you know, and Denver was amazing. Denver was my first city. It was amazing. It'll always be, you know, a fond place in my heart. It's my debut city. But we got to Atlanta and like, I remember after the first cabinet battle, they're like, okay, go off, like vocal. And I was like, let's go. Like we were all like laughing and enjoying it. And it felt like a party, you know what I'm saying? Like the show. But then also, you know, it's not just the like getting loud, but they were also very respectful, obviously, for like the quiet uptown. And it was just very much like feeling every moment. And when the audience is loud and responsive, it feels like they're on the journey with us. You know, it's less of a performance and more of just a conversation of like, we're going to do this. I hope you guys are along for the ride, you know. But if it feels like we have to pull, then it's a different feeling, you know. And obviously we're performers, and so we get through it. But I've definitely had moments where the audience has affected, I think, my performance. I don't know if it was good or bad, you know. Sometimes if they're clapping a lot, I'm like, all right, I'll give them more energy, you know. You know, so it's like, yeah, that'll push me over the edge on a Sunday matinee. So yeah, I think it can only help. So what I'm saying is, if you go to the theater and you're seeing Hamilton or any show, be lively. Don't be afraid to clap. Don't be afraid to, you know, laugh. I think the old like theater etiquette is that you're just quiet until the very end of the show or very end of a song, and then you like politely clap. But like no, like laugh and cheer. That's why our eduhams we perform for high school kids. They're a lot, but it's also like some of the better audiences because like we get to say no to this, and they're like, ooh. You know, like the second Mariah comes out, they're losing it, and then we like have the kiss, and they're like, "Oh my gosh!" They're like going insane, and it's like funny, you know, like it gives us energy. It's like these kids are like they're too much, but it's fun, you know. So it definitely helps us deliver even a more fun performance.
Well, Edgar, I think you answered this, but I just want to, throw it out there just to make sure I get this enough
Yeah.
question. Other than being in such a big show that you were already a fan of, what is most satisfying or meaningful about being in Hamilton? It sounded like an audience was part of that.
Yeah, the audience the audience for a lot of reasons. Not just because, having an audience like that as a performer is a gift. There's, like I said earlier, there was many years where a lot of us were doing theater and art with not as many followers and not as many people who loved it to see what we were doing, so that's always the gift. But also for me, it's the representation. Like I said, it's like it was a big moment for me to see people who looked and sounded like me and in the heights, and so the idea that I'm providing that for future generations of performers or artists is the reason we do it. It's not about the paycheck, it's not about the yay, oh my gosh, that was so great. That's a plus, that's a bonus, but the real reason is because like we get to inspire the next generation of people, in a way that I was inspired by the Leslie Odom Juniors of the world, by the Daveed Diggs of the world, by the Chris Jacksons of the world, by the Mandy, like now is my time to, in a sense, give back. And like, I remember in Baltimore, there was a woman who came with her son, and it was like, for my son to see a Black Hamilton, like he now wants to do theater, and I was like undone, like I was like, boom, because that was it. It's like, even on my hardest day when I feel like, oh gosh, I didn't nail that scene as good as I wanted to, or like, man, like I'm struggling, tour's hard, like to hear something like that, or to even just remember, this is why we do it. That's the real, I think that's the real like highlight of a job like Hamilton, is that we're able to inspire on such a wide level. Yeah, so I'm blessed to have the job I do.
Andrew, thank you for that, and thank you for that question.
Great question.
We have another one right here. So you mentioned the Leslies of the world and the Lyns. Another question from an anonymous attendee. How do you find the balance between embodying a character while not just copying how another actor fills that role?
Good question. I've always said, for me, I think, first of all, like I said earlier, I think I learned how to make a role my own by doing the Joseph role where I had nothing to base it off of, right? But, in all characters, I think I interpret text differently than anyone else, just like how you would interpret it differently than I would, And so I don't think I don't think I have to like try to be different. It's not about that. It's not like, oh, well, I saw Lynn do this, so I'm going to actively try to do something else. Like, it's not that. It's more just like, for me, how do I read this scene? Lynn is filtering his character and his experiences through the living in a Puerto Rican household, because that's where he's from. I'm filtering my experiences living in a Nigerian household. That's already different. So the way I interpret the character and certain scenes or certain moments that Hamilton goes through is filtered through my life experiences, which are completely different from Lynn's. And so I think for me, it's already there. I just have to interpret it the way I interpret it, and I'm guided by my resident director who I run things by. There's certain, like a scene I'm like, see, I think he would react like this because of what I'm trying to set up arc-wise of what I want the character to be. I think in this moment, this is the reaction he would have, to now show the growth, to now later he would have this moment. And so like, and they trust me enough to like, Edgar does his homework, like I'm not out here just making stuff up just to like, I'm going to throw in a riff because it sounds pretty. Like, that's not what it's about for me. It's about the storytelling, So it's like, I'm doing this choice because of this. If it's wrong, then they're like, all right, let's tweak it. But if it's like, no, you're spot on, go with it, that type of thing. So it's the never ending investigation of the material that I think will keep my take fresh and different from other people's. Just like how other people are diving deeper into their own version, I'm diving deeper into mine, and mine by default is different from Lynn's. I think some people have said like, you sound like Lynn. I'm like, all right, cool, like great. I think Lynn's dope. So that's a compliment to me. So I don't mind that. But yeah, I think. But also at the same time, like I'll take little nuggets if I hear Lynn do something really cool. I remember there was one he had in We Know, which I never remember the words to We Know, even when I'm doing it. So I don't know if I'll remember it now, but he was like, as you can see, I kept a record of every check in my checkered history, check it again against it. And I was like, that is so sick. Like, I was like, that is dope. That's so lit. Or like, he was like, as you can see, I kept a record of every check in my checkered history, check it again against your list and see. And I was like, that, just the flow of it, like, that's really cool. and I kind of want to cop that, like, kind of want to steal that from you. And like I tried it once or twice, and I was like, yeah, it doesn't work with my Hamilton, and that's fine. You know, like as cool as it sounds, as dope as maybe I'll bust it out every now and then, like on a Happy Trails or like on a random Sunday, so that people perk their ears up on stage, and so it's like a little ear candy for them. But for the most part, I'm like, yeah, it doesn't work with my storytelling of what I'm trying to do with the character, you know. So yeah, I don't think I copy a lot. I don't think any Hamilton does, or I don't think any character, you know, any Burr, any Hamilton, any Washington tries to just copy. I think they're inspired by, obviously. I mean, I think Lynn's the GOAT, you know, so it's like, of course I would be inspired by him and try to, if he does something a certain way and I think it works, try to break down, like, why does that work? Why do I think that that sounds so cool to my ear? And if I can't make it work here, can I make it work somewhere else? You know, can I make the basic principles of why I think he made this moment work in a different part, in my shot, for example, or like whatever, you know? So yeah, I think, yeah, to answer the question.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
I talk a lot like Hamilton, so I'm sorry.
So yeah, we got a little bit over 5 minutes left. We're going to try and make sure we get all these questions as we go.
Yeah.
So anonymous attendee asked, started talking about representation and its impact on you. There's been a lot of conversation recently about how to think about American history and race in Hamilton in the current moment, including critiques. What do you think the play is doing right now in the U.S.?
Yeah, you know, I've read some of the critiques, and I think, you know, like Lynn said as well, I think you can critique anything. You know, there's a lot of critiques for this show that are valid. I think what this show has done, and this is just my personal opinion, maybe I'm biased because I'm in it, but I think what the show has done outweighs the bad, right? So you have to look at it like that, at least for me, is that what this show has done for representation in America, not only for performers, but just at large. Like, not a lot of non-theater people know about Broadway shows. You know, they might hear of a Wicked, they might hear of some of these, you know, but like, everyone for the most part knows about Hamilton. So the fact that like Hamilton was able to bridge the gap between Broadway and just the regular world is a huge thing. The fact that it is able to employ people of color at, you know, in the Broadway stages in a way that no other show before it really has, other than, you know, the Lion Kings, other than the Color Purples. I'll give them that credit, right? But it's done it in a way that like is impressive, you know. And so I think that to speak to that, for me, is a powerful thing to do. And you can throw stones at every show. Everything has problems, right? You can say that the women aren't written as well as they should be. You can say that they do shy away from slavery. You can say a lot of things about the show. I'm not saying it's a perfect show, but to not give its due credits because of these things, I think is a little bit unfair. Because, you know, because I think personally it's a masterpiece in a lot of ways. You know, in a lot of ways, I think it's a masterpiece. And in the ways that it may fail certain things, it's like, well, not everything can be everything. You know, not every show can be about everything. Because it's like, okay, well then, why isn't Music Man also talking about race? Why isn't this show also talking about, you know? So you can poke at everything. But for me, it's like, I think what it's done good is massive. And what it does in terms of representation, not only in, you know, for people of color, but you know, politics. You know, it's not a political show in a sense, but it also is a political show just by default, you know, because what it stands for. And you see people, you know, in politics today using quotes from it, you know, rise up, or, you know, we want a revolution, you know, things like that it's like is now common vernacular for Americans just because of what this show did. So that's the short answer, so we can try to get through all the others. Sorry.
Thank you, Edward. This is going to be our one of our last questions here. Acting is such a form of expression and takes an open mind and ability to break out of yourself. What advice do you have for people who are trying to get comfortable doing this?
Yeah, good question. Wow, good question. I would say part of the work of being an artist and part of the work of being an actor is really knowing yourself, really learning about yourself, really spending time to get to know yourself, not only as an artist, but as a person, you know. Know what your triggers are, know, you know, that was something that was big for me, learning, you know, about mental health on tour, because that's a whole thing, you know, really learning like what stresses me out, what keeps me even, what what are the things that I'm like, I'm crying now? What are the things that get me upset? What it like really learning about yourself, and learning how to keep an even keel, learning on stage I was worried. I remember when I first booked it, I was worried. I was like, will I be able to cry every night in Quiet Uptown? Like, oh my gosh, if I don't cry, I'm gonna ruin the show. Like learning what gets you there, learning also that it's okay if you don't get there. That the story's in ruin. Like really, just learning completely about yourself, and.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. I just had to go to answer. It takes the open mind to. Yeah, and the advice I would give, is just really take time, to learn about yourself. And I know that sounds weird, but like explore how things make you feel, how you react to certain situations, and be like, why did I get upset about that? Is it something that like they said, or is it something that I need to deal with? Is it something that, oh, that's a hot button issue for me and I didn't even realize it, really take time to like sit down and yeah. All right. Sorry.
Hey, we're about done. And with every Strickland Speaking, we always end with this same question.
Nice.
What would you give to a student or a young aspiring artist? What piece of advice would you give them to help them go along the way?
That is a good question. I have a couple mottos in my life, but one of them is hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And I'm sure everybody's heard it. I wasn't somebody who started musical theater at the age of 2, or tap dancing at 3, like you hear a lot of these people doing. I started relatively late for the acting world in high school, and I started even later for the musical theater world, which is I didn't start doing musical theater until after college, And so I am a personal testament to if you work hard, something will happen for you, some measure of success. I wouldn't say I'm at the mountaintop of success, but for me, I always believe I'm like, I might have started late and I might have a lot of catching up to do, but I'm going to be working when other people aren't. I'm going to be working, perfecting my craft, taking YouTube singing lessons, trying to, watch master classes on YouTube. There's so many like tools nowadays, it's like if you can't afford music lessons, like I couldn't, I found a vocal warm-up guy and I would do that before every show I did. Even when I was on stage, I'd be staring at people's mouths and be like, how are you producing that sound? Where's your tongue placement? Where's your soft palate? Where, like being a student of this art forever, not trying to be in it for the quick success, but really being in it for, like I always say, nobody knew who Bryan Cranston was until he was like 65. I'm sure he was doing theater before that. He did Michael in the Middle that some people watched, and then he did Breaking Bad, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, who is this guy? Like he blew up. So it's that type of thing where it's like you got to be committed to the artistry of it and to being a student of it, and really just working hard. My friends when I was in the 5 years I was working in San Diego, people would be out partying on the weekends and I'd be in my room studying, like watching YouTube videos, breaking down scenes. Even if I'm watching a TV show, I'm breaking down Game of Thrones scenes and camera angles and all this stuff, like really becoming a student of it. And that's what I would say to it, is that really just have a love for the learning, know how you learn, figure out creative ways to learn, and work hard, and work and just work and work and work. And at some point it will pay off. It always will. It might take a little bit longer than you planned, right? You might be like, if I work hard for 2 years, I'll be fine. It might take 4. It might take 40. It might, Morgan Freeman, I think, started like 30 years ago or something like that. He's like 100. I don't know how old he is. But it's that type of thing, just work hard for as long as it takes, and you'll definitely find whatever your measure of success is.
Well, EDRED, thank you so much for that answer. And everyone, thank you for your questions tonight. And thank you for joining us tonight on Strictly Speaking. EDRED, I know you can't hear them clapping, but I'm sure they're clapping.
I appreciate y'all. I'm reading Megan Rogers' comments, so thank you, Megan. And thank you all for the lovely, lovely questions. All the anonymous, and let me go through Brianna and Annie, and let me scroll, and Isabella and Linda, and another one, Brianna. Y'all are great. Thank you for all your questions, and thank you for the love, and thank you for having me, Joshua. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much, EDRED, and thank you all for joining us tonight. We have a great number of events coming up this week and for the rest of the semester. And if you like what you saw here tonight, please consider supporting University Theater by becoming a donor today and visiting University Theater's website at go.ncsu.edu. EDRED, thank you so much. Stay safe. I hope you're back on the soon because we can't wait to see you here at in Raleigh.
I love it. Would love to come there. Can't wait. You have to take me out for barbecue.
Yes. All right. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, man. Take care, everybody.